Basically,
I should be good.
you get it, yeah.
Yes, dear. Yes, please. Oh, I'll be silent.
This is a theme music for the show.
Yes. It's Enya's Songs of Africa.
Boom.
I love it.
I said it felt like Lion King, so.
I really like it.
Close enough for that?
And for some odd
You
reason,
wanna lean back?
the listeners like to hear it play, so they're coming on. Although they give me a hard time sometimes, tell me it's playing too long. "8:08 is the time in our studios. This is the In the Spotlight radio show right here on Q95 FM radio. We are here for another Monday. Remember last week Monday we had the ladies of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and the ladies were here and we had a good time sharing quite a bit of personal information with the public, but we didn't mind. It was all about the education. So again, thank you to Trudy Christian, Amanda Deja, and Alison Favre for coming in last week Monday and sharing with us quite openly on this medical issue or situation that not many people talk about very openly, because you feel like you're talking about personal stuff and private stuff that probably others really should not be knowing about. But it's something that we need to know about, especially those of us who have to deal with it on a daily basis. And so today actually is PCOS Awareness Day. I forgot to hold my ribbon, but I wore it today to work. So you would have seen the ladies dressed in teal with their teal ribbon and all of that. Teal is the color. So congratulations, ladies, on the observance of PCOS Awareness Day today and your month of activities, because it comes to an end today with a panel discussion. Now, you were actually supposed to be on tonight, and this gentleman here was supposed to be on last week, Monday, but we had to do what you may call a switcheroo and facilitate him because he had to leave state, and he came back luckily on Friday. I was keeping my fingers crossed that he would be back on time to be here tonight, and he did come back on time, and he's here with us in studios. Of course, we're talking about Michael Lees. Now, Lees doesn't sound like a familiar last name to us, so we have to hear about that. We have quite a few things to ask this Mr. Michael right here. And you know, he's joined as well by two other gentlemen that I've actually been working with the last few days for a production, and it's really good work that these guys do, and I can see, you know, why they ended up being chosen to work with Michael for this particular production. So let's do some greetings and begin chatting a bit with the folks in studios. We'll get the mics together once we have them going. Let's begin with Mr. Lees. Michael.
Good evening, Fidina. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Fantastic.
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 I am happy to hear that. Fantastic. And I'm going to say good night as well to Sheldon. Sheldon is here. Sheldon Kazumi.
Good night, Fidina, and good night to your listeners out there in Radio Land.
Is there such a thing as Radio Land, Sheldon?
Yeah, man. Radio still have its piece of land that it declares that nobody can touch.
I think so too. Norris, good evening to you.
Good night for Diana. Good night to everybody listening.
All right, it is a pleasure to have all of you in studios tonight. We know the focus is going to be on Michael, but these two gentlemen also played a significant role in the film Uncivilized, and we'll get to know what this is all about as we proceed and progress with the program. But let's begin again by speaking with the gentleman of the hour, Michael Lees. And Michael, there's so many things that we want to know where you are concerned. And in fact, earlier this evening, I put out a post and I said, what are some of the things that you would like me to ask Michael tonight? So at some point, I'm just going to go to the fans' questions and deal with that directly. But as we begin, let us get to know a bit more about Michael. So I think I had to ask Sheldon, where's Michael from? You know, and he was trying to explain to me. So I think first and foremost, we need to learn who you are, where you're from, and this whole curly hair combination.
Alright, I guess it's kind of a long story that I'll make really short.
It's okay, we have time.
I was born in England.
You were born in England.
Right.
What part of England?
Sorry.
Surrey.
West of London.
Okay.
My dad is from Newcastle.
Okay.
So that was my football team.
Okay. Your dad is Caucasian, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And my mom is originally from Barbados, but her family emigrated to England when she was young. So when I was 5, we actually moved out to Dominica, kind of in a strange way. They were looking basically for a change of pace from England, also a good place to raise a black mixed kid, essentially. And they were actually looking at Guadeloupe. They were looking at getting a farm in Guadeloupe. And on the visit down, my dad saw Dominica in the Liat magazine and thought it looked amazing. He came out, visited it, loved it. We came out, everyone loved it. And we've been here 20-something years now.
Because you're talking and I'm saying, how does a British man with a Bajan wife find himself in Dominica? So he saw Dominica in a Liat magazine and decided he wanted to come here instead. That is incredible. First of all, why Guadeloupe? He can't speak any French, can he?
No, honestly.
Your mother, I know Bajans can't speak French.
Yeah, it would have been a very different life, basically, where I would have been a little French farm kid. Not entirely sure why they chose it.
Mm-hmm.
But he also, he'd lived across the globe. Like, Newcastle is a place a lot of people don't really leave. He left when he was in his early 20s or so to South Africa, and then stayed in Africa for about 16 years, and then was in Australia and the States. So when they were thinking about moving, you know, my dad had all different places he was interested in. My mom said, all right, I don't want to stay on this side, close enough to family and relatives. So I guess that was their compromise.
Okay, tell me a bit more about your parents, though. We saw a bit of them in the film, but tell us a bit more about them.
I think they balance each other out, and I would say I'm kind of half-half in between. My dad is the kind of guy who doesn't get flustered easily, always very even-keeled, nothing really worries him. My mom, on the other hand, is a very sort of go-getter, driven person, which each of those personality types have their strength and their weakness. So I think I've got a fair bit of both.
I'm going to share something with you, right? So my sister is following this, right? Mm-hmm. And I told her that your dad was Caucasian and that your mom was a black woman. And so she said, you know, it must be the Caucasian side of him that drove him to go into the forest.
I always find it hilarious. It's so funny. People say that kind of thing all the time. Like, even I was at like a wedding, and when someone heard I was half white, they were like, "Oh yeah, that was the side." And yet, on the other hand, it's also like black, like basically like Rastafarian culture and all other things that are actually really integrated with this idea of nature and the forest. But as we kind of like, I guess, step away from that, it's the white people who've been in in their cities and whatever that want to get back to it. So.
I found that quite incredible when she shared that, and I said I had to share that with you on the program. So so we spoke about your mom and your dad just to get to know them a bit, and there is something, in fact, somebody asked that we'll speak to later on in the program, that they seemed a bit concerned that your parents were not very concerned when you came out from. I don't know if you saw that, right?
Yeah, I saw
that your
that.
parents were quite, casual, probably, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Let's learn a bit more about you, Michael. So you came to Dominica at age 5.
Right.
How much do you remember before that being in England?
I guess maybe because the move was such a stark move. A lot of people don't remember things before that age. I have a couple pretty vivid memories. One of them is the first time I ever ate a chocolate Rice Krispie treat. I remember like the preschool I went to, it was basically on a farm. So I remember once they had like an egg hunt. And I remember every time I almost got to pick up an egg, another kid would run and get it in front. So bummed. But yeah, I remember a good amount, and we used to go back every couple of years to see our grandparents, my grandparents, and the rest of the family and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. And so you came to Dominica at age 5. Do you remember that at all?
I remember where we stayed. We stayed with Lena Roach in Canefield, who is still a really good family friend. I won't expose her age, but she looks great for it, and she's going ahead. One of my earliest memories of Dominica, actually, is the flavor of red quenchy while hearing Buju Banton's Hills and Valleys at the Old Market.
Oh my goodness.
It's weird, like memories like that. Like,
Yes.
they're just
No, the
so
red
vivid.
quenchy,
Yeah,
red quenchy
I
part.
never tasted anything like it.
I know. And the music.
Yeah.
Music normally serves as a reminder of a certain memory, of
Right,
a certain
exactly.
time. And you remember Buju Banton's Over Hills and Valleys. too.
Yeah.
Only Rasta can free the people, something like that,
Yeah.
right? No, you mentioned Buju and then you mentioned that song. I have to ask you though, you mentioned Rastafarian a bit earlier on in the program. Is that something you subscribe to?
No, not particularly. I don't subscribe to anything so much. The closest thing I would say I subscribe to is like Buddhist thought and philosophy.
Really?
Yeah. But I think that you see similar veins throughout all the either religious, conscious, and like mystical movements throughout the world. There's the same kind of ideas going on.
So, but tell us about Buddhism, if that's what you subscribe to.
Yeah. So one of the first tenets is realizing that suffering is inherent in human existence, which sounds so depressing, but it's really not. It's one, acknowledging that, also knowing where the suffering comes from, how to stop it, and essentially the last step is like nirvana and how to attain that. The other main thing that really drew me towards it is this idea of non-attachment. And so that doesn't mean that you don't get involved in life, but it means that you know everything has to come to an end. So you don't, try and hold on to things too tightly, knowing that death is inevitable at the end of the day. So you know to sort of go with the flow and hold things loosely rather than try to grip onto anything too tight.
How did all of that come into play while you were out there?
So I brought a couple books with me. I brought some Buddhist scripture. I bought the Bhagavad Gita, which is like a Hindu text, and then also the Bible, which I'd never read. So it was really interesting, honestly, reading those things, living a very minimalistic lifestyle, and then also being out in nature, feeling connected to the world finally. But then you're also seeing, like, you can't live out there without killing things. Most of the time we get things from the supermarket and our hands stay clean. Really, I don't know, in a sense, getting involved and just, again, seeing, suffering is inevitable for someone in the cycle of life. Like, things have to die for other things to live.
Like the crabs that you kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Let us talk a bit more about the person coming to Dominica and life growing up in Dominica. Who are your friends? Did you know Sheldon?
I did not know. How long ago did we meet?
Just long before we went to the forest.
Just before you went into the forest. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if I tell you who my friends are, will you know my friends?
That does not. It does not matter. I just threw that in there. But what was it like when you came to Dominica? Growing
Yeah.
up in Dominica.
I think it's pretty idyllic childhood.
Mhm.
Like, I think there's obviously there's challenges, but there's a lot of things you take for granted growing up here versus somewhere else where, you know, as a kid you can just go and run around on the beach or at the river or just out with your friends, and you don't really have to worry about that much about like abductions or shootings or anything like that. And so yeah, really, I feel like having quite a free childhood, very fun childhood. Yeah.
Mhm. School.
School?
Mm-hmm.
Did a
What school?
Pioneer.
You went to Pioneer,
I
right?
went to Pioneer.
Okay, all right. What was Pioneer like?
Pioneer school. Like we had, so there were teachers. Obviously, we had a mix of local and foreign teachers, and you had obviously a large local base and also some foreign kids as well. So yeah, cool mix. A lot of, I mean, my mom is the kind of parent that always stressed the importance of school. So grades are always important, but especially at that age for me, school, I was school inclined, so it was cool. And then a lot of football.
So you loved school. You were interested in school.
Yeah, I
So
love
you
school.
would do well.
Love school. Basically, school, football, video games, outside. That's it. Happy kid.
Okay, happy kid. Did you make it to high school in Dominica? Because I knew you left at some point.
I did. So I was at Orion.
Oh, the next level. Yes.
Yeah, and then in fourth form, is it fourth form or after fourth form? After fourth form, I left to the States,
Okay.
and I finished the last couple of years there, and then went to college in North Carolina.
What made you though? What caused you to have to leave at that time to go to the States?
I guess nothing in particular.
Your dad was British. Your mom was Bajan.
Yeah, so originally we were looking at England,
Okay.
but we'd been out of state for so long that you weren't going to get in-state tuition or anything like that. And we have family and stuff in the States. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you went to college, university at?
North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
What did you do there? What
Uh,
degree? What did you pursue?
Excuse me. I started off studying business.
Business.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They actually have a really good business school there, so that was part of the reason that I went. And after 2 years, you know, I was always interested in a lot of like the social impact of business, and we seemed to never get to that subject in any of the classes. And then I had a really good entrepreneurship professor, and in his class, I basically realized that I think to be a good entrepreneur, you basically need to find what your passion is and then make that your business. And then he also brought the speaker in, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but the gist of it was at the end, I had a flash forward of doing like a business marketing job at 40, and I just realized I was going to be suicidal. And she asked, so what are you guys going to do to like put your lives on track or whatever? And I was like, all right, I'm quitting business school.
Oh my goodness! So you quit.
Yeah, I quit.
So what was the passion though that you were going after?
So I think at that time I was trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Film was something that had been on my radar for a while, but it also didn't seem feasible. And especially, you know, I guess coming from the Caribbean and like the way that we think about school and jobs and everything else, the kind of tracks ahead that seem viable, it's like businessman, lawyer, doctor, and then just really realizing that was something I was really interested in. Also, philosophy was something I was interested in, but I was like, I'm gonna make zero money if I do philosophy. And I feel like sometimes philosophy is like sitting on the sidelines of life thinking about it. Film, and especially like documentary, offered an opportunity to actively participate and ask questions and get into the thick of it. So
you went in that direction.
right.
Okay.
And actually, one of my like senior class project was a documentary, different than Civilized, but kind of similar, looking at development and sort of like sustainable culture, thinking about Dominica, comparing it with the States, and then I also went out to this like intentional living community in western North Carolina in the mountains called Earth Haven, and they were practicing something there called permaculture, and that is a whole like philosophy about sustainable living, from the way that the community is set up to the way that they get their power to the way that they build their houses, and it's run as a like collective democratic like local government essentially. And crazy, they basically need complete consensus to get anything done, which obviously is time consuming, but it also makes sure that everyone is a participant and is on board with whatever decisions get made.
Complete consensus from everyone or from a body?
I think it's everyone. Either everyone or everyone that attends the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What was that like? How long did you stay there?
So I only got to go and visit for like maybe 2 weekends, but it was a real eye opener. And there's things that we're talking about now in terms of organic farming, and things that we also knew or used to know. Just thinking about what crops to put together. How do you arrange your garden? How do you take the gray water from your house, filter it, and then use that to then feed your crops, rather than sending that away and having to pump in more water? And meeting people whose whole life dedication really was towards this and figuring out these answers. And to me, I still think that like permaculture, ideas around permaculture and those kinds of questions are the big questions that we're trying to figure out now, because our sort of Western model of infinite growth at the peril of the environment is about to pay off in a horrible way, and we're already starting to feel the effects.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out how do you live in a way with your surroundings that keeps everything in balance.
Okay, interesting. So you did that, and you stayed in the US for some time until the thought came back that you should go back home. What
Right.
led to that?
So part of it was I didn't want to stay in the States. Also, my student visa was up. I had a 1-year extension where I stayed and I worked in New York for a year. But it was in that time where I was like, all right, I've been interested in all these sorts of ideas, and I really want to get out and do this project. I think probably part of it as well, being in somewhere like New York where you're so cut off from nature and you're cut off from people. There's people all around you, but you're still living a very sort of like isolated existence. Spurred it even more to want to come and do this. So before I left, I'd always wanted to do this. So my girlfriend at the time and I, we did a road trip across the States, sleeping in our car and at friends' houses and camping and stuff. And then came down here. I started working at CBN4 to get the money I needed for the last bits of like camera equipment. And then I told my boss I was leaving to go find God in the forest.
The question is, did you find him?
I think so.
You think so? Okay. So you knew then that you were coming back to do this project. You were not just coming back to Dominica, you were coming back specifically to do this project, to go into the forest.
Right, so a little bit of both. I definitely knew that this was the project I was going to do. I was going to come back for some time anyway, but I think I did have it in my head that after this project, maybe I would try and go to England because career opportunities and but I think somewhere between the forest and Maria, there was something that switched that made me feel fully anchored in Dominica. And if I leave Dominica, I think it would be in the Caribbean region, but I would like to stay here.
You would like to stay in
Yeah,
Dominica.
definitely.
Awesomeness. Okay. So the project comes to mind, and how do you prepare? How do you start planning for this?
Originally, it was going to be with a couple other people. And
Mhm.
while I was in the States, we were talking to a production company and trying to get some funding to go and do this like Stone Age survival course. There's a woman called Lynx Vilden. She lives up in Washington State. I think Nat Geo's done a piece on her, and she literally can live Stone Age and take you out and learn these things. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So my next best bet was getting survival and outdoor books, reading as much as I could, practicing what I could, and then going to meet the people that I felt could teach me a couple things. So I went out to the Kalinago Territory. A gentleman called David Burton
Mhm.
taught me how to make a crayfish pot.
Okay.
Um,
So you can catch some.
yeah, exactly. I had another friend who.
Did
taught
you
me-
learn, by the way?
Did I
Did you learn how to do it?
Well, I sat.
It's one
I-
thing to teach
I
you.
sat- right,
It's another thing if
right,
you
right.
learn.
If your question is, could I build one from scratch now? No.
Oh, okay.
But I think I have it filmed, so I can go back and look at the footage.
Okay.
Had someone else teach me how to like make bird traps, and also went out with Cyril John, the botanist, to learn
I saw
about some of
that,
the plants.
yes.
Yeah, and then also we did a trip up to see Palm, up in the mountains, to also see if he had any tangible advice, but also more on the mental attitude and everything else that you need to go into something like that, and what inspired him to do that.
It was quite interesting, your visit to him, and the fact that he lives up there practically alone in the forest and seems to have been doing quite fine for how many years? 30 years?
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
For 40 years. And he has survived that. Did he survive Hurricane Maria, by the
Yeah,
way?
fantastic. Like the house barely got damaged.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I went up with a couple of friends to go and see him after, and fantastic.
What was it like meeting these people who could teach you the survival traits that you needed for the forest?
I would say really eye-opening. It was also interesting in a way sometimes how hard it was to get to some of these people, because even something as simple as like making fish traps, right? Wire mesh nets or cages are relatively inexpensive, and so it makes sense that a lot of people have moved over to that. So a lot of people could teach you how to make that. I was trying to learn like as many things just from materials that you could find in nature. So it actually took a while to find some of these people and some of these things. And a lot of times there was this kind of sentiment that, okay, these older folk can do it, but younger folk aren't picking it up or
Mhm.
learning it, which I can't blame them. There's easier ways.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you? But still, I think it would be cool to carry on these sorts of traditions.
So that was part of the preparation
Right,
process,
right.
meeting these people. How else did you prepare?
How else did I prepare? Reading books. Oh, a lot of also, having never done a project of this size before, reading books about filmmaking and documentary making, and researching other films, both documentary and narrative, that might be similar in structure, or also, I'm going in with very limited gear.
Mhm.
So trying to see how you can make something cool from in that kind of DIY style, and then lots of gear researching as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Basically along those lines.
Yeah.
How many months did you prepare for before you made that trek into the forest?
Super hard to say, because like a project like that, it's hard to say like where.
From the time you got to Dominica.
From the time I got to
Yes, let's
Dominica.
just take it from
Okay,
there.
so I got home in August
Mm-hmm.
of 2016, and I left in June 2017.
June 2017 to go into the forest.
Yeah. But I was also working, so it was like, you know, it would be full days at work and then going home and doing all the research and trying to prep as much as possible.
Michael, I have to ask you this, right? So you planned on doing this initially with a group of persons, right?
Mhm.
That didn't pan out the
Mhm.
way you intended.
Mhm.
What made you decide that you could go out and do this on your own, by yourself? What were you thinking?
I think part of it honestly was this belief that Dominica is not like Alaska or some of these far out places where people are trying to do these things. Like, even if you completely fail to build anything, like, you're still going to be warm for the most part, you know what I mean? And that there's still food all around and you've got fresh water. So actually, I felt that it was quite doable.
Did you ask anybody else if they had done it before, except for other than the gentleman who lived up in the forest? What's his name again? Palm, yes.
Yeah.
Did you ask anybody else if they had ever attempted this? No.
Yeah, probably not.
All right. Okay. How did you decide on the location? Did you go scouting?
Yeah, I did go scouting. Originally, we were thinking of all different things. Like, originally, honestly, I wanted to live almost like a nomadic life and just like roam through Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
But then you run into issues of national parks and private land and everything else. So the Rosalie area was an area I was familiar with.
Okay.
And my parents also have some land inside forested area as well. So basically based around that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that is where you initially wanted to. So you were in the Rosalie.
Originally, I was like, I want to just like.
You just wanted to
I
roam.
want to like drop me
Yeah.
off in the middle of the country and
Yeah.
let me just walk through the forest. But then,
Uh-uh.
you know, talking to forestry, thinking about permits and stuff, it was just not gonna happen. I could have done it, but then I would have a lot of issues trying to do this film, get it out afterwards.
Okay, so you were actually in the Rosalie area.
Yeah.
That's where you started off.
Yeah.
That's when they dropped you off. And we'll talk about who dropped you off in a while and how that went out. But a few things before you go off into the forest. You're a smoker. How did- I remember seeing you having your final smoke, you know. How did that work out for you?
It was so easy.
Really?
Yeah. I've relapsed because I suck.
You suck. You suck.
But honestly, being like in the forest, away from those things, and having so many other things to do, that it was actually so easy. Like, I didn't even think about it. Like, every time I tried to quit before, you know, it's just on your mind.
Mhm.
You're like, all right, or I'll have one tomorrow, or I'll start tomorrow. But out in the
You
forest,
had
it was-
other things
it
to
was-
worry
yeah,
about.
Yeah, it was really easy.
Yeah. Well, why did you go back to it, Michael?
Life.
Oh, life. Okay, life happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know one of the things in life that happens in the film. We'll talk about that too. So you decide to go. What are you taking with you? What is it that you're packing with you to go into the forest?
So, a machete,
Mm-hmm.
a knife,
Mm-hmm.
a lighter, some rope that I'd made out of coconut husk, dry bags to keep my equipment dry, my 3 books, camera, so I brought a Canon 60D, I brought a couple lenses, I brought a GoPro, a mount for it, a tripod, a little shoulder rig, and a small Chromebook,
Mm-hmm.
basically a very small laptop, so I was able to transfer footage. So I brought my Chromebook, 2 hard drives, and then a 17-watt solar panel and a power bank.
I was about to ask you how you were going to charge those things.
Yeah. I've had a couple of people like, oh, how did you charge it? You couldn't have been in the forest. I'm like, no, this.
The
The
sun comes through on the solar panel.
Yeah.
Yes. that
So 17-watt solar panel and power bank, and then some fold-up chargers as well. Which, after Maria, I decided was a great thing to bring into Dominica and can be found at Garaway Enterprises.
Is
Boom.
that so? Commercial. You're going commercial on the film here. Okay, so fine. You put all of this together, and it's the day before you get ready to go into the forest. What are you doing on that day?
Probably going over my gear,
Mm-hmm.
realizing it's all good,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm nervous, but it's fine. And honestly, I've been itching to do it for so long, just ready to go. I think we had a couple of false starts of when I was gonna go out, so it was like trying to film like a last fun day of all kind of things going on. And then we went to the beach and it was raining. And da 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 da. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't honestly I can't remember exactly what the day before I left was like. But
Mm-hmm.
probably fairly quiet.
What was mom and dad saying at the time?
Well, you see, I'd primed them because originally I wanted to do this project Stone Age style,
Mhm.
right? So that's no machete, no lighter, no knife, no tent, no anything. And so I never brought a tent, but the fact that I brought these other things with me, you know, that was a lot better for them than what I was already planning to do before, you know?
Okay.
And then I also, you know, I tried to be reasonable and be smart. Like I ended up getting this like emergency beacon locator that is actually used more at sea. But essentially in an emergency like that, there's a tracking number and they'd be able to find out where that was. And then I did bring a cell phone. No one else knew I had one. No one else was contacting me. But that was for a direct line from my parents in case of emergency.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was smart.
Yeah.
That was a smart thing. So you wake up next morning
Mhm.
and it's time to make that move. What time? What time did you move?
Well, I would have loved to move a lot earlier, but my dad doesn't know how to move early. So I got a late start. I'd say I probably didn't get to the forest around until maybe like 12.
12
half the day.
midday.
Yeah, 11, 12.
That does not give you much time though.
No, which-
before darkness falls.
Which, as you see, I only get half of a shelter.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your mom and your dad drop you off.
Yeah.
And they drop you off, you take your things
Yeah.
and you say goodbye to them.
Yeah.
And you're saying to yourself, am I really doing this? Were you?
No, at that point, I was like, I'm so ready to do
You're
this.
so ready to
Yeah.
do this.
I think it was maybe towards the night, maybe just like the first night of being alone out there, not necessarily feeling afraid that anyone's gonna like find you or
Mhm.
kill you or anything like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know, I was just having some sort of like reflections and anxieties and stuff of, you know, right, here's this moment that you've been waiting for all this time. How are you actually gonna pull it off? Like, are you gonna be able to film anything that means anything to anyone? Like that kind of thing.
Well, yes, it did work out in the end.
Yeah.
Before we get into, you know, what happened when you got there and you started working things out, I want to ask you something.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard about Sukuya and Lugao in
Yes.
local parts?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah,
Okay, and
not worried.
you were not worried about that? What? You were not worried about that?
No.
You were not worried about seeing any funny lights in the middle of the night and all of that? No?
No.
Or any strange figure, ghosts or anything?
No, I think the thing I was more worried about is like just running into some stranger in the middle of the forest.
You know what? I would be more worried about snakes.
Yeah, we had a couple of those.
Oh my goodness. Michael, you're getting me very worried. Okay, so Michael, you get there, and your parents have driven off,
Right.
and you're getting ready to start this new journey, this new venture.
My new life in the forest.
Yes, your life in the deep forest of Dominica. And you get there, what is the first thing you start doing? What are the first things, that you start doing?
So first thing is trying to find a suitable location. So finding somewhere that is close enough to the river that it's not going to be a chore to get water, but also somewhere that's not so close that in the event of a storm, I get
Mhm.
washed away. So I actually spent a lot of that first day just trying to figure out where.
Not many hours of that first day you
Yeah.
had before nightfall.
So it was basically trying to find the spot that was going to be good, and then getting to work, setting up a shelter. I think probably, obviously, then getting water. I spent the next day finishing off the shelter.
Before we get to the next
Yeah.
definition of the shelter, what was the first night like?
Yeah, like I said, just kind of feeling anxiety
Mhm.
about
Mm-hmm.
doing this
No
project.
sukuya.
No superior. No. All internal anxiety. Yeah,
Okay. What did you sleep on?
what did I sleep on? Probably. So I adapted it as I went in. You know, I
Okay.
added sand, I added some coconut husk, made it pretty lavish. But in the beginning, it was probably just leaves, maybe a towel.
Oh, you had some clothing items.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had leaves and then you had a towel.
Yeah.
Well, how was that?
Fine.
Bugs.
Fine. I mean, let me tell you, I did bring bug spray. I did bring bug spray. Yeah. Because I did my scouting before, and it was actually just so miserable without it that I was like, you know what? I'm 6 months. Let me bring it. Had I been able to connect to all the people that I've met since, I would have known that I could have used citronella and other things as bug repellent.
What was the initial intention of the duration of time you were going to be there? 6 months?
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
I want to call you crazy, but I think I might be insulting you if I call you crazy. But
No,
you're a mad
You
fella.
wouldn't be the first.
You're clearly insane, Michael. You're insane. 6 months in the forest.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, so you're there and you're starting to settle into life in the forest. And what do you eat?
A lot of coconut.
A lot of
A
coconut.
lot of dry coconut.
Did you drink the water too?
I did.
Okay.
And then, so basically it was coconut, crab, veal, fish on a good day, crayfish, and then also there was a spot near enough to my camp where there was like a grove of old dashini. So there's like a lot of rotten ones, but there's some good ones, and then a couple pieces of sugarcane, basically.
All
And then as time went on after, I was like, oh, and I did try a bunch of random fruit in the forest as well. You've got those, so there's two varieties of like wild blueberries. You know, I don't know if you know, there's the one that's kind of fairy. Yeah, but then there's another one that I've never seen until then.
How did you know it was safe
Well,
to
I'd eaten that one before. Then I found one that was similar to it, looked similar, the leaves were similar. I went for it, it was delicious. I did try, I don't know if you've ever seen the wild Ethereum. They basically have this long, like you know, like the stem in the Ethereum? Something like that, but way larger, and it hangs down. And it has these little red things that come out like pomegranate.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, I know what you're
And I
talking
was like,
about.
well, that looks like pomegranate, so I'll at least try it.
You were playing with your life, young man. You have no idea if some of these things were poisonous.
Yeah, but I'm not like taking handfuls of it and then be like, oh, I don't want it. It's like, you know, touch it to your tongue and see if your mouth turns.
Yeah, like you would know if it's poisonous by doing that. Yeah?
Yeah, but even, like, I mean, that's actually what they say. So, like, military, the first thing is, like, you rub it against your skin to see if there's any kind of reaction. And if not, then you can, like, taste it to your tongue. And then if nothing, then you can try a small amount of it. So you basically do it in increments. Because if it was poisonous,
Your body would react.
right, but doing it in that small amount, it was not going to kill you. It's just going to put you down for a minute.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. So,
There's a method to the madness.
Listen, we already know that you had to have some kind of something, you know, to get you to go there in the first case. So we're not going to call you insane. We're not going to call you crazy. We're not going to call you mad. We'll call you adventurous.
Cool.
Okay?
Let me just, but then you were saying earlier about, I don't know, about people that going out there who do it. There's someone that I read when I was in high school that I really loved called Henry David Thoreau. He's a writer, long dead, but he did something similar except it was like a cabin in the woods, and he was also like a transcendentalist.
Oh.
So again, tackling some of the same things. And then all the people that are like kind of like seeking spiritually, a lot of times that's what they do. Whether it's going to the forest, going to the desert, being alone with your thoughts and with nature. You're rolling your eyes.
I am. I am indeed. So you eventually built something. You eventually built some kind of housing there using what?
Sticks and zalmush and
And
heliconia
what?
leaves.
What's the second?
Zalmush? Like it's kind of like a. The leaf looks like a young coconut leaf.
Okay.
With it, like it's split.
Okay.
into,
Okay.
And then after that, I decided to build 4 posts of bamboo with bamboo rafters and then zollbush on top.
Okay.
But to get that bamboo, like the bamboo was upriver and there were some massive pieces. So it was felling these pieces,
Oh wow.
dragging them down the river, up the riverbank, and then up to my spot, and then splitting them. So after that, I mean, my hands were sliced up. Just handling bamboo is sharp.
Your choice.
Yeah.
Your choice, Michael. Yes. So you survived on all of these things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But if we go back to the film, and I am trying as much not to reference the film too much because you really want people to experience the film.
Yeah,
You know what I
100%,
mean?
100%.
I don't want to dig too much into the film. But in terms of there were days that the rain came pouring down day after day after day, and you look so bloody depressed. You look depressed.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest underestimation of how much rain there would be. I was like, oh yeah, Dominic has all these other things, it should be fine. But trying to make fire in the damp forest when it's raining all the time proved like near impossible. So I spent a lot of time actually trying to figure out ways to keep my firewood dry and like keep fires going and all that kind of stuff. And there's actually a moment that you don't see in the film, but there was a day I was redesigning my hut and I didn't get it done in time, and it starts pouring, and basically my hut it's like open, and I try and put my towel over it, but of course that gets soaked within minutes. So I had to spend the night, basically if I lay down I was going to be in mud, so I spent the night basically on my knees with my head
Jesus
on the ground
Christ.
on my head. And again, you're saying like, okay, I look depressed. So that even in that moment was a great learning moment, because that was a moment where I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Regret?
No, but so then what it came to is realizing, wait, I'm actually completely out here by my own choice. This is what I want to do. This is not the worst thing in the world. It's like wet and mildly uncomfortable, but it's not a catastrophe. And that was for me like an epiphany moment, really. I just feel like, yeah, you can get through most things.
And that kept you. You meditated a lot as well.
I did.
Did that help?
Yeah, definitely.
It helped.
Yeah.
It helped. You're a survivor.
We all are.
having experienced this. What was before we speak about the hurricane and all of that? Before the hurricane, what was the most difficult moment for you being in the forest?
Besides
The rain?
Yeah, besides the rain, the other thing for me was trying to stay present and trying to, you're out there alone, you have thoughts, as most of us do a lot of time, you have an inner monologue going on, you have just basically like chatter, nonsense stuff going on all the time, and just realizing that none of that is serving any purpose. And if you're, again, on doing any kind of like spiritual seeking, to try and get where you gotta go, it has to be there where you are. So trying my best to turn off the noise and just stay like present where I was. I think that was the biggest challenge. I think that continues to be the biggest challenge and is one of the biggest challenges for most of us.
You knew what time it was because you had your phone.
Yeah, but I wasn't.
You knew what day it was?
I honestly didn't check. I wasn't like checking my phone all the time because again, it's charging off of solar. So it's like every couple of days I would check to see,
So you somewhat knew what was happening to some extent out there, but did you have data?
No, so
No data.
no data.
So it was more if somebody calls or
Yeah,
whatever.
which was just my parents.
Which was just your parents, nobody else.
I had one friend, Sarita, who tried to call me, and I was like,
Not happening.
yeah, don't do
Not
it.
happening. Not happening. We have to talk about going to the bathroom. How did that work out there?
Give me your best guess.
In the river?
Oh, that's horrible.
I don't know. Asking.
So inconsiderate for everyone downstream.
Oh my goodness. Okay, did you dig a pit? What did you do?
I took a trench. So, yeah, think about it. So basically, you use your trench, you fill up one piece, and you move along.
Oh my
Because otherwise you end up with a million holes all over the place. You gotta do all that work every single time that you gotta go. So
What did you wipe with?
leaves.
Leaves.
Yeah. And then I use the river as a bidet afterwards.
Ah, I know the river would have played some kind of part.
Minimal,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm sorry, me,
I'm
I probably find myself in the river. I don't care who's downstream.
Now I know never to stay downstream of you if you ever do something.
But I wouldn't do that. So I wouldn't do what you did.
What?
I'm crazy to go out in the forest and do that. I'm not even going with 10 people for by myself. No, ain't happening. Sorry, Michael. Not happening at all. No, Sheldon. This ain't happening at all. But you had your experience. It's all good. So, Michael, you continue to live in the forest, and as the day goes by, what is going through your mind? How many countdown of the days? What is going on?
I think so. Again, I think one of the things was being like, all right, I can't wait until I have everything set up perfectly. That then I'll just be able to chill and I'll have free time. Which I think again, that's something that we do in our regular life all the time.
That was not regular life.
No, but it's the same thing where you say, you know, I'm really busy right now. I got to keep doing these things, and I'll enjoy myself later. And then getting to the point of realizing, you know what, the work is probably actually never gonna stop. So finding time to just be present or write or hang out in the river while also doing all those other chores. And I think the other thing was trying to make sure that I'm filming as much as I need to, and also trying to figure out where the story is gonna go. Because again, you've got limited charge and limited time basically to figure out what you need to film. So there were days that I would just basically spend like tracing. I also had, you know, some other ideas in my head of where I thought the film was going to go and what I wanted to do. So spending time trying to trace these arcs and then shoot according to that.
Did you venture out into other areas around your own location?
Yeah. So again, honestly, I was thinking of going further afield. I didn't go as far as I would have liked. I think after I finally got set up fully, I would have started venturing further and further. But I did make it, you know, both up and down river, up like a little mountain close by, to the neighboring like farm roads and stuff. And then one day even like, I think probably close to the border of the Tafita National Park, because where we're in Rosalie is at the base of Tafita, basically. So.
Okay. What I want? Okay, so some questions. How did he survive the mosquitoes? Didn't you hear? He brought along his bug spray.
100%.
Somebody was just asking, how did you survive the mosquitoes? So we're gonna take a quick break. Give Michael a chance to just take a little breather, and we're coming right back. This is the In the Spotlight radio show. It is 9 o'clock in the studios of Q95 FM. We have with us Michael Lees. Michael Lees, the director, and he is featured in the film Uncivilized, which is it still playing in the theater?
It is until Thursday.
It's still playing. It's still on at the theaters in Dominica, Emerald Movies in Dominica. And we also have Sheldon and Norris, who we'll talk to when we come to the actual film discussion, who helped in terms of the production and editing of the film Uncivilized. Our Dominican people doing fantastic, great things. And as I mentioned before, I think this film is going to go places. And of course, along the way, there's a few persons asking some questions. When is it going to come to the US? When will it get to see it online? So we'll talk about all of that in just a bit. Keep it locked. We're coming right back on the program.
Is there a reason it's rattling?
This is too loud.
Okay, remember you're still on there. It's one of those.
Oh, isn't it like
It's one of those.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
one of those.
I know it's this one too. I know it's this one. Can I just turn it on?
Yeah.
Untold
Let me just see if I can turn it on.
touching the human and personal side of our people in politics, religion, sports.
I saw the movie and was so terrified for him.
Getting to know our families, our servants, youth, and the ordinary.
Hey, Sabina.
Listen to their stories.
I need to
No
see this video.
restrictions. No restrictions.
Well, you have to tell them when you can get to
In the
them.
spotlight, so the spotlight is topics, issues, and relevant
Putting some angles.
Don't miss.
How
In
many
the spotlight
people?
on Q95 FM radio
60,
every Monday night
65.
from 8 p.m.
Not
in
bad.
the spotlight.
Oh man.
One online
I
with
have been
interesting
thinking about doing this in my
personalities,
house.
educational
I have
and
dedicated
informative
cameras
topics and
always
issues,
on HDMI
intriguing and entertaining
whenever I
for
want.
us listen to. In the spotlight,
The lighting
Monday
is
nights
perfectly
from
set
8
up,
p.m.
so
on
it's always
Q95.
Have you ever seen a movie called Live in Public?
No, I haven't seen any movies that suck.
It's amazing. It's a documentary, and they basically it's one of the early like .com billionaire people, and he's realizing that in the future everything will be surveilled. So he does basically this first project, which is like reality TV network. It's all these people in an underground thing in New York. There's cameras everywhere, and even in the bathroom, in the shower, and they all
3 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. Just saying good evening again to all those who are listening on Q95 FM 95.1, or if you're using one of the online streams to listen to the program, good evening to you. It is our pleasure to have you. Those of you who are viewing live on Facebook, folks like Sabina, Glenda, Galux, and all the other folks who are tuned in via the Facebook Live. We're happy to have you on the program tonight. We are on with Michael Lees, an adventurous young man. Not a cuckoo young man, adventurous. Who decided to spend some time in the forest of Dominica. Had no clue initially that he would be faced with a Category 5 hurricane while there. So we've learned quite a bit from Michael in terms of the premeditation of going into the forest. We got an understanding of what he took along with him, his thoughts, what happened while he started in his earlier days, what he ate, how he lived, how he went to the bathroom, all that good stuff. And from all of that came a film on Civilized, and that film has been playing at the local movie theater for the second week now, or third week, is going into the third week, I think. And most times, from what I've seen, there's been a full house. I was privileged to get to see the premiere, and I quite enjoyed it. A little scared for Michael at times, concerned. There were times that I got a bit emotional. There was at one point in time that I actually teared up. And I think that time came interestingly when he was leaving the stadium after witnessing Independence Day celebrations at the stadium. You know, he was speaking, and it really was deep what he was saying. And I think that is where I shed a couple of tears, you know, in terms of Michael's whole experience of all of this. So Michael, in fact, speaks to before the forest, during the forest, and post Hurricane Maria, if you want to put it that way. So Michael, did you encounter anyone along the way while you were in the forest? Did you meet anybody? Did anybody come along?
Yep. I met a couple farmers. There was also a biology conservation group that was staying at Three Rivers and doing ecological surveys.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they'd be out there like trapping birds and stuff. And I'm like, alright, let me come and see what's going on here.
What did they think of what you were doing?
I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. They just passed you by?
Although one of them, No. I mean, we'd have a lot of interaction, but you never know what anyone thinks of you. Well, I know what you think of me. But,
I think you're adventurous.
yeah, sure. Also, actually, one of them gave me a book that I absolutely love. I think it should be in every Dominican school. It's called The Island by Aldous Huxley. That was one of the other books I read. I loved it so much. Aldous Huxley is a student who wrote Brave New World, which is a dystopian novel similar to George Orwell's 1984. But this book was his utopian counterpoint to that in his last book. And there's a lot of it that reminds me of Dominica, of a couple other islands, and shows you what we have, what can go wrong, and also the things that are strong about other cultures as well. So I highly recommend that book to anyone that's curious about these kinds of things.
So you encountered these people, and who else?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That was pretty much it. Were you happy to see
yeah, definitely.
human? Yes, you were happy for that.
Yeah.
Were you missing home at that time? I mean,
No.
not really.
No.
Not your parents.
No.
You had a girlfriend.
Yeah, well, we actually broke up when I came home to Dominica to come and do this project.
Why?
So, well, multiple reasons, but
We don't have to get into
I
that.
mean, part of it, she was also staying in the States, and I was coming back here. I wanted to do this project also, like, without a girlfriend, essentially. The whole thing was about non-attachment and everything else, so it was like something I had to do on my own. So it wasn't so much missing people, but it was sometimes having recollections of past moments with these people and kind of having the an appreciation of that, but never being like, I wish anyone else was here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about the girlfriend part post Hurricane Maria. We'll talk about that just briefly. But so you're there, and time goes by. You adapt into your environment. You're okay. You're doing. At day number what did you hear about Hurricane Maria?
Day 83.
Day number 83.
Yeah.
You had stayed there all that time.
Yeah.
And you were surviving.
Yeah.
And you were doing okay.
Yeah.
All right, a few days without protein probably, but otherwise.
Yeah, my toenails had started flaking a little bit.
Oh
probably.
no.
No big deal. It's
No
fine.
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that we have to learn about you as well. Is I mean, did this affect you health wise in any way?
No.
Did not.
No.
Didn't really impact you in any
No,
way.
probably the best health that I was in, honestly.
Okay. All right. So at day number 83, what happens?
Well, someone comes out from Three Rivers, one of the few people that knew where I was, and comes and tells me that there's a Category 2 or 3 hurricane coming.
Mm-hmm. Did you
and
know what that meant?
I swear he said like 50-mile-per-hour winds.
50.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's right. I don't want to put words in his mouth. So either way, I remember trying to figure it out, being like, all right, how fast is a car at 50 miles per hour? But then it's wind, not a car. So, it's just air. And we're trying to weigh it out. And then also being like, which is something I always say, is the project was about living with nature. So I had the good parts, now I was going to get the ugly part, and I didn't feel like you should just leave when...
No,
it's
you
good.
should have just left.
But then I wouldn't have this film.
No, I know. But I mean, somebody can come to tell you that even if they said it was 50 miles per hour, I mean, staying there is not, come on, Michael.
And it worked out.
It worked out. So that's the way you're looking at it now. It worked out. So he comes and he says to you that there is a Category 2, Category 3 hurricane heading our way, right? And you say to him what?
I'm staying.
And
And he was like, yeah, I kind of knew you were going to say that. And then I set to work weatherproofing my shelter.
Weatherproofing your shelter for a Category 3 hurricane at the time, because that's what was in your mind.
Exactly.
And how did you do that, Michael?
Well, luckily the top of a coconut tree had fallen recently.
Mm-hmm.
So, the leaves I had before were a little light.
I'm laughing at you. You realize that, right?
100%.
Yes.
So I ended up getting coconut fronds to weigh it down and waterproof it. And let me tell you, just by the way, it worked.
It worked.
a tree ended up falling down, but my thing did not get blown away, and I did not get wet. I got a little wet from some of the dampness in the ground, but even that, I dug channels around my thing a couple of days before. So honestly, it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
So it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
All right. So you did that. Now, what about your equipment and everything that you had? How
Yeah.
did you secure these things?
Yeah. So I maybe I don't know how many days before that gone upriver and had found a log that had been chopped up.
You see
in
that?
some
Yeah,
form.
that somebody saying safety first, my brother. How are we? Like, like no, they cannot believe that you said. But anyway, go on.
Basically, I had in my hut, I had my things elevated like a plank of wood, like on some rocks, so that basically it wasn't going to be on the ground getting wet. And they were in my dry bags, which are also available at Garaway Enterprises, that keep everything completely dry. So all my gear stayed perfectly dry. I lost things at home. I lost nothing in the forest.
Really?
Yeah.
That is incredible. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you. It's real.
It's real.
It's real.
So you didn't lose anything,
No.
none of your equipment, because
No.
you secured them in
Right.
those bags
Exactly.
that you're saying is now available somewhere in Dominica.
Yeah.
That's the wrong
Garaway.
corner. It's okay. It's okay. You can get them. You can give them a free plug.
Good
That's
plug.
alright. We'll send them a bill tomorrow. All right. So you're getting ready now for Hurricane Maria. In your mind, a Category 2, Category 3 hurricane is coming. What were you anticipating? Lots of rain. What were you anticipating?
Yeah, basically rain, wind, and some fallen trees. I guess that was basically it, which is what happened, just to an exponential degree.
Yes, indeed. But you know, thinking about it, did you think that you were going to be safe?
Yes.
That you were going to survive the hurricane?
Yes. I wouldn't have stayed out there if I didn't think I was going to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, not that long before Irma had passed by, and it was a non-event for us, so it kind of felt like it was going to be the same kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, and even like all day during Maria, the day of Maria, it was supposed to hit earlier. Like I was told, by afternoon, and it was barely anything. So I was like, I think we've got to wait. Like,
Are you serious?
yeah.
No, I don't remember it supposed to be earlier. I always knew it was supposed to be evening. Yes, it was supposed to be Norris.
I feel like Maria stalled out a bit and because it took longer to come. It had a chance to get stronger, so it didn't come on time. It slowed down a bit, gathered more.
Supercharged.
Oh, okay. Well, I still don't want to remember Maria. I don't even remember those things. Anyway, Michael. So, you figured since you didn't get anything much, Maria had already come and gone, right? But you were still prepared all the same.
Yeah.
You were still prepared all the same. Did you talk to anybody? Did you make a call to mom and dad?
No, I think they sent me a text, and I texted them back early in the day.
Saying you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And you're staying.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, evening falls, and it starts to rain, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, it had been kind of raining throughout the afternoon.
Oh, it was? Yeah. Okay, take us through, Michael. I'm over to you now. Tell us what happened with this Hurricane Maria experience.
So, basically, I am
Norris is filming again.
sitting
Part 2.
Sitting in this open palm leaf hut, sitting and kind of looking outside as evening falls. Being like, all right, is this when is it coming? I'm actually kind of in anticipation, when is this thing coming? And it seems like it's never coming. And even though it was raining, it still really felt like this calm before the storm. And then it was, I feel like after night hit, that it started gradually getting more and more haywire. So the rain just picked up. At a certain point, you could hear boulders being tumbled down the river. You could hear and you could feel these massive boulders being tumbled down. It gets to a point, branches and stuff are breaking. But for the most part as well, it was still sort of, a lot of the time felt calm around the area. You could hear wind in the distance roaring through, You could hear the rain, you could hear the river, but yet, you know, I'm in a stick and palm leaf thing and it's not blowing away. You know, I'm sitting there and not feeling like I'm going to blow away at any point. But then what would happen is basically these massive gusts would come through, and then for like a couple seconds I would see outside the vines hanging down, basically going up at 90 degrees, and then if they stayed like that for more than a couple seconds, that's when you start hearing cracks, like trees just cracking. And so those are the moments of like terror and panic, basically. And then it would pass and you'd be fine, and it's kind of, you know, back to feeling somewhat relatively like calm. So basically having this up and down roller coaster the whole time. I think filming, I remember at one point like filming a message to my brother, because I'm just like, you know, screaming and be like, ah! And then I'm like, Dominic, if you see this, you're gonna laugh your ass off when you see me deal like this out here. Little did I know, like that was still like early days.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so then it starts getting to the point where the trees are cracking around more and more. There's a tree that is close to me that I had gauged, and I was like, you know, I think I'll be fine. But then once things really got into effect, I was like, you know what, I'm not so sure. Like, I think this thing might fall. And so that was my main, like, worry the whole time. And
Pitch darkness, by the way?
yeah, pitch darkness.
darkness.
I had a little headlamp that wasn't even that bright at that point, that I would poke, like, you know, shine out, and I could just see a spot of light outside to see, like I said, if the vines at 90 degrees are hanging down, basically. But yeah.
You laugh at this now, right? But
I mean,
you were not laughing through it,
no,
right?
I was going between laughing and crying. Like, you know, you're like, I remember at one point thinking, like, if I'd ever gone to a fortune teller and they had told me this is where I'd end up, I would be like, there's no way, what are you telling me? This is the most absurd thing ever. So I was definitely aware of the absurdity of the situation.
In your mind, what do you think was the duration of this hurricane from your perspective where you were?
I have no idea. I tried like figuring it out and going back through like my GoPro timestamps and stuff. I'm pretty sure that I fell asleep in the eye of the storm, because by that point, and I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but you've already been looking like that, so it's fine. By that point, the tree had fallen, right? So I was actually under the tree. The trunk had missed me, but the branch had collapsed the shelter. Didn't hit me, but it collapsed everything down to the ground, essentially. Or, you know, a couple feet above the ground. So by that point, I was like, there's no way anything is flying away. I'm set. I'm fine. And,
So the tree kind of helped you then?
yeah, definitely.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
And, you know, it was funny. I remember looking back. These guys haven't even maybe seen this clip. There's a clip where I'm filming after all of this has happened. And it's during the eye, and it feels so calm. And I'm literally just talking like, man, it's so calm right now. There's just like a breeze passing over my feet, and it's so like still and serene. And I remember looking back at it, like, this is madness. But
Finally, we admit this madness. Finally, we admit this madness. Oh my goodness. So you went through this, and I recall you doing some filming.
Yeah.
Did you think you were going to die?
I did think I was gonna die.
Yeah.
But it got to that point where, you know, you're basically saying thank you and I love you.
Yes, and you start sending I love you messages to everybody.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
How did you think you were going to die? Something was going to fall and crush you?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm asking.
I was just like this, you know, there is this massive tree and it's 50-50 in what direction it falls. So yeah, pretty much. And I've said it a million times, so it almost sounds cliche saying it again, but basically in that moment leading up to that, a feeling of kind of getting like a flash of your life and just gratitude for everything that you've had up to that point. For some reason, your brain at potential death doesn't remember all the misery that life also is. It just remembers the great moments of the great people, and that's kind of, you know, you get up to that, You're like, thanks. Basically, also had that feeling like I'm not ready to die yet, but I'm also not afraid. So that's also when you kind of surrendering to the forces that be.
But you survived it.
I survived.
What do you think contributed to your survival?
I know where you're going with this. What contributed to my survival?
Yes.
Part planning and a lot of luck.
A lot of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I covered certain bases. Like, I was very far elevation-wise from the river. I did not have to worry about getting washed away
Okay.
from a river.
But you could hear the boulders
I
and
could
the
hear
river.
them. Yeah. I'm between two rivers, but still
You were in between two
Yeah,
rivers,
yeah.
but elevated.
elevated and far enough away from each that I wasn't worried.
Okay.
So that, even when I set my camp up, like thinking about trees and where they might fall, I thought I had figured it out. When I was during the thing, realized, okay, I probably haven't figured this out completely. Also, the forest works as a very good barrier, honestly, to break the wind, and that's also something when you talk about sustainable agriculture and permaculture. Gardens and places are designed with windbreaks in mind as well. And then there was a chance that the tree fell that way and not this way, and that it also fell and ended up protecting me. So whatever forces you want to call it.
Was there anything while you were going through this trauma that you said, okay, if I make it through this, we do that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
If I make it through this, I'm not going to smoke anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Did you make any promises?
No, zero.
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 Okay.
You
I
do it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, I'm laughing with you on Norris, and I don't know what the joke is. Inside joke or something?
I think I made some decisions about my potential relationships
I see.
and
See. Relationships, plural? Ship.
yes, relationship.
Ship.
Yeah.
Ship.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Michael, you go through this. The tree was your savior.
Yeah.
It seems through this, you survived it. And you wake up next morning, or when daylight falls, whenever that was for you in the forest. And what do you see?
I see an apocalypse.
Yes.
There was not a single leaf left on a tree. I've been under the forest canopy all these months, and now all of a sudden it's, I want to say bright daylight, but it wasn't bright daylight because it was cloudy. But you know what I mean? Like, there was no forest canopy at all. And even walking through the forest, you're seeing birds that are stunned, just like walking around on the ground, and like, what is going on? Like, everyone, like humans and animals, everyone basically was just like, this is unprecedented. And then you look up on the hill, and there's coconut trees that look like they've been napalmed. You know what I mean? And then it was, I guess, a couple days later, you start seeing the helicopters flying over,
And you're wondering what the heck is going
yeah,
on.
it just honestly feels like this is it. It felt biblical in proportion, like this kind of disaster. Yeah.
And so you wake up and you see that. What's your next move?
Well, I was filming immediately from
Of
the
course
time
you were.
I got Naris is proud. Yeah, filmed a little bit, and then basically even the night of the hurricane, I was asking myself, all right, this is a bad storm. Am I gonna have to leave after this, or do I stick to this project? As soon as I stepped out the next day, it just knew that like this section of things was over. It was about going home and seeing, if friends and family are alive and how everything is. So it was then the next day trying to make the journey from where I was to Three Rivers Eco Lodge, but I couldn't do that. I spent the day trekking through the forest, up and down the river. Couldn't make it.
How come you couldn't make it?
Because the river was still swollen. Completely.
You couldn't cross.
Completely.
Well, you were adventurous.
Yeah, but I'm not stupid.
Somebody might say you were to even stay there in the first case.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you couldn't cross it, you couldn't go across the river, so
Right.
you just continued going up and down to see at what
Yeah.
point you could move.
Until it was dark, and I just had to sleep outside. But on the plus side,
Oh, there's a plus
Plus
side. Ooh.
plus side is that I've been eating dry coconut all this time. Now all the young coconut trees have fallen, so it's coconuts everywhere.
Abundance.
So I actually ate fantastically. that day.
Okay, all right. At least you had that. While some of us were wondering where our next meal was coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you eventually get to make it across the river?
So the next day, so 2 days after Maria.
So you slept.
Yeah, I slept on a log in the rain.
Oh, Michael, I feel sorry for you.
Do you?
Yes, I do. On a log in the rain. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you've
But
been
again,
through.
I've been primed already. Having
Yeah.
that other experience earlier
Yeah.
on, I
Yeah.
already knew this is not the worst thing. I'm not gonna die of cold. Like, just had to swing my arms around and stay warm. You know?
So you got you got across. You slept on a log.
Right.
Next day, you were able to
Right.
move.
Right.
So you were able to cross the river.
Yeah. Able to cross the river, made it to the Three Rivers. That's the first time, I'm seeing buildings and seeing the damage. There's a piece of one building that had fallen up the hill and hit another building. Things in a mess all over. And then met some people there. We're trying to figure out, is there cell service? Like, what have you heard? Like, again, after that, there's no cell service, anything. Everything was just rumors. What you hear, word of mouth.
True.
And then basically setting to work, trying to set up the essentials back there. So I stayed there for about 6 days, and in that time, what we did is because they're an eco lodge, they off-grid, they're basically sustainable living stuff. So it was basically resetting up the solar panels, reconnecting the water tank, and then we had water and power immediately. And then between the farm produce they had there and neighboring farms, getting food together. Yeah. And then a couple of days later, we did a quick trip up to Grand Fond to see what outside was like.
So your parents, I would think, should have been out of their bunkers, out of their mind, wondering what had happened to their son. But you get home and your dad hugs you, and like you're just coming from a trip. What the heck was that?
Yeah, that's great.
Michael.
Well, I've talked
Had you had any way to make contact with them before that?
Zero.
So they were seeing you for the first time.
Yeah.
That's weird, right?
I mean, I guess I've talked to a couple of people who said their parents would react similarly, and everyone reacts differently.
Really?
Because they basically, especially my mom, would have been very worried. But having gone through the grieving process for 6 days, and in a way, I think you're almost trying to make peace with it. That I think at that point she was in a very sort of zened out
Okay.
state. Yeah.
I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
To some extent,
Yeah.
Michael. But you get home and you see all the madness, all the chaos, and I know you probably might be saying, I'm just happy to be alive, and I'm happy to see my parents and my friends
Right.
and family to some extent. But in your mind, what did you think happened to the rest of Dominica?
So I guess by the time I get home, the next little trip is out to like Coolabee Street, Colliho, and you see the devastation that happened in Coolabee Street. I'd heard things about town being flattened and all kinds of other things. So finally getting to town and seeing what was going on there, I think once seeing those things, you realize that people are alive, but it's a crazy situation, unprecedented. Like no banks, no supermarkets, no cell phone service, no internet, no running water, no anything. Like basically sent back to Stone Age.
Definitely, I think that's what it was. So for you, this film took a whole different direction from what you stated that you initially had in mind for it, and that was as a result of Hurricane Maria. The overall experience and being able to get that kind of footage, although we didn't see much of it, is there a reason we didn't see much of it? Were you too scared to record more during the
After-
hurricane?
Oh, during the hurricane?
Yes.
I have more.
You have more.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, one, a lot of it is dark.
Okay.
Two, yes, a lot of times I'm thinking about my own life and then being like, all right, but I should film something.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that, I can be talking about different things throughout, but
I wouldn't be recording a thing. I'd be so scared.
you might be doing a live podcast.
No. You think, right? You think. So let us talk about this production that came from all of this. And I guess that's where these guys come in. So you did filming, Michael, and there's quite a bit more, that's in the movie, but in the film, that will get people to see, because we don't want to talk about everything in the film that they will get to see. But this production, at what point did you begin work on the production? What was the thinking behind it, and how did you link up with these guys to be the ones to work with you?
So the original thought of the production was about trying to go back essentially to however mankind lived 10,000 years ago or something. That's why I said I originally wanted to go Stone Age. That didn't happen, but still my idea was kind of tracing that, going from hunter-gathering and then going to the point where you're getting farm produce and seeing also how you start developing more technology, even if it's simple technology, fire shelters, whatever else to make your life easier. That was sort of the original trajectory. Obviously, Maria turned things around in a very different way, but it also fit in perfectly. It showed the brutalness of nature and the natural world, and it also put all of us in a situation to see kind of how we would act without the government, without all these things that we call civilization and what happens. So basically continued filming until Christmas. Remember, power was still an issue, even though I had my panel and stuff. So after doing all of that, then it came to logging and transcribing all of the footage, starting to put it together, putting together a rough cut. Lots of notebooks filled up, trying to figure out where it's going and everything else. And then I don't know exactly how many months after it was that I came to Norris and Sheldon. I think soon after the hurricane, we bounced into each other, and then I showed them some of the footage, and then maybe a couple months later came back with a rough cut, and then these guys came on board, and from there, that's how we basically get from that to this project that we have now in Emerald Movies.
Yes, I'm doing very, very well. So let me have a chat a bit with Norris, and we're going to give you a little rest for a moment. Sheldon, up to the mic. Sheldon and Norris. Sheldon Kazumi and Norris Francois. Yes, I know both names, and I know the both names very well. Sheldon, I'm going to begin with you. So you encounter this young man right here, and he speaks to you about this project. What are you thinking?
Okay, so it happens a little bit different.
Okay.
So what they haven't told you, so Michael and Norris went to Orion together.
Aha.
So I got to know Michael through Norris, who
Okay.
works with me at Unite, and
Okay.
I always used to see him around, crazy dude working for CBN for running all over the
This
place.
one right here, right,
that
Michael?
one,
You
yeah.
see, I didn't say it.
You
You
know?
said that, Michael.
Yeah, I ended up meeting him through Norris.
In the
Even
mic,
before-
Sheldon. In the
even-
mic, please.
Even before he went.
Just Sheldon,
he
of
went to
all
the
people,
forest.
should know he has to speak in the mic.
I can
Norris.
understand that. Yeah. And then Norris had given me the heads up that Michael was planning to do this.
Mhm.
Okay, so I already had some kind of an idea.
Mhm.
And again, as he said, right after the storm, our office was operational very quickly after the storm. So
Okay.
we was there doing stuff, and Michael had the opportunity to stop by and show us some of the stuff, and we were filming almost immediately after Maria too. So everybody just crazy about the Maria footage.
Footage.
And everything that we got was like post Maria because of the situation that where I was home with my in-laws. I wasn't worried about being exposed to the elements of filming and all that kind of thing. But definitely days after I was on it. So, but to see actual footage of the storm, that was like golden bean footage, if you know what I mean, And then we fast forward to a few months later down the line when Michael brought the first cut, rough cut.
So Michael did his first cut.
Yeah, he did a rough
Okay.
cut, and he's like, guys, take a look at this. Really want you to help work with us on the edit on this thing. Norris gave me a copy of the cut, and I went home with it. And I sat down with Sabrina and I said, look, I have Michael movie. Like, in my mind, I have a movie. And we sat down and watched it like it was the premiere of Emerald Movies. Like you guys went through the rough cut.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, what drives it is the story. You understand? And yes, I seen all the technical issues and whatever, and where you could make it better, whatever. But
That's where you come in.
The story,
Yes.
the story.
Is
the
what
story.
had you.
I came back next day and I was like, yeah, it good. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, we go inside, and then so we decided to take on the project in terms of the editing. Norris definitely is the one you have to talk to about the editing process. Norris kind of, since joining Unite, has just became the in-house editor. I have completely
good.
given up the reins of editing.
And he's good. He's good.
One or two times I always pass and say, okay, what's the cut looking like? Let's go, and put a little input here with there, but the general direction of it was what he envisioned. And then we reached to the point where we had something that could be submitted to, was it for Trinidad? We was trying to meet the deadline for Trinidad Film Festival, and we had something that could be submitted. And at that point, the discussions with Michael, I had discussions with him about, like, I truly believe in this film, and I feel that I would like to play a bigger role in terms of the production, and we had some discussions, and then he actually offered the position of executive producer, and what that entails is, other than the production aspect of things, but actually putting your money where your mouth is, like really come in and support the movement,
Investing in
the movement, and so like we reached to that point, and then it was come down to the film festival, trying to get everything ready for the film festival, and I just remember at the point when we saw that final, the cut that I saw before we submitted, I was like,
You were pleased.
yeah, we ready to cause some damage.
When did you have to submit that film? Do you remember?
Was it like in March or April?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think I remember it because that's the second year in a row we have a project needed to be submitted for the film, the Trinidad Film Festival. The year before we did Osei with Alwyn Bully.
Okay.
And again he wanted it to submit for that film festival.
Okay.
So
You had me and Nars sleeping in the office.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my story.
and
You all had a deadline.
like the 5-day countdown to them having to submit. I think they were putting some full nighters in the office with some whiskey bottles of coffee.
Whiskey bottles of coffee.
Yeah.
Not whiskey.
No, not whiskey.
Coffee.
Yeah. Whiskey bottles of coffee.
Not that I know that coffee fits into. Anyway,
Yeah.
Norris, may I have a chat with you a bit now? So Norris, you saw this. What
The rough cut.
Sheldon describes as an incredible rough cut, as you
Yeah.
put it, of something that you all could do some amazing stuff with. What did you think when you saw it first?
Well, the story was definitely there. I agree with Sheldon on most aspects, but me and Michael
A little bit
share some of the same neuroses. Like, we know that it can be better, so we have to make it better. So when I saw the rough cut, me and Michael had like a meeting to generally, for him to transfer his vision to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in the office for like a day, and we had a long discussion. And then he left me to tighten up and to fix the things. And I feel like that first from taking it from the rough cut to the second cut took a few months, like
Oh.
3, 4.
Really?
Yeah, it took a while because while the story is there, you also there's issues of pacing, there's technical things, so color and there's a bunch of technical
Things that we don't
get
understand. That's
right.
all right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like I would go through it the first time focusing on one thing, then go again focusing on a certain thing, and I mean with that there's also other things to work on. So it took a while, but then when I got to my cut, I think then Michael came back in, or I sent it to him or something. Then he watched it, gave me some notes. I went through again, everything on that. And I think, let's say after that is about when we started focusing on getting it ready for the film festival, right?
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Okay.
So we had about a week, let's say 5 days, where basically Michael would come to town in the morning. Let's say day 1, day 2, Michael would come to town in the morning, we work on it, and we made some progress, but we were realizing that we were not making progress fast enough. So for the last 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
we were there all night into the next day. We were kind of working in shifts sometimes, but a lot of the time was both of us up
Mm-hmm.
just working on
Drinking coffee from a
it.
whiskey
Lots and
bottle.
lots of coffee. Like
Mm-hmm.
A little red
I
cap.
think that's the most coffee I've had. In like a 24-hour window. Yeah. But I feel like that's what I don't know. I enjoyed that time because I feel like that's what editing is. That's when you come up with the best ideas. Because we had to go through and rework narration and come up with some montage scenes. So there were times when we'd be like, okay, we need to figure out this part of the script. You go in that corner, I go in that corner. We both write different versions, and we come together and take the good elements of each and put them together. So even though it was 2 days till deadline, we were still coming up with things
It
at
was
that
still-
time.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think we finished the cut because the deadline was, let's say, the 15th. I'm not saying that's
No,
exactly,
no,
but let's
no.
say it was the 15th. On the 14th at 11 o'clock is when we finished
Wow.
the cut and then put it to upload because we had to leave time to upload because we can't rely too much on the internet when you want to show. So we finished, uploaded, and yeah, I feel like we were very happy with what we had.
Good.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
That's important. So when I'm still with you, the film premiered at Emerald Movies, and
Well, I mean the premiere was
Yes.
at Trinidad Film Festival. If you
oh
want.
no, I'm talking about the Dominica.
Okay, that's okay.
Yes.
Fine.
Well, I mean, it's premiered in the. I was getting
Okay.
to the feedback from the public. You're sitting there, and the place is filled, with Dominicans coming out to support this, and you know that you are part of this. How are you feeling? What are you thinking?
No, it was a very good experience. I mean, like a once in a lifetime experience because you were there on the premiere night. People
Yes.
were very engaged in the film.
They
we
were.
got laughs where we wanted laughs.
Yes.
We got the silence for the tension moments.
That's when
We
the
got
little
gasps.
tears were dropping,
Yeah.
were running down people's eyes.
Like you could feel the energy in the room was exactly what we wanted. So we knew that we had achieved what we had set out to achieve.
Awesome.
And that was very, very good to to have it.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you, Michael, a bit. So similar question to what I just asked Norris. So you've done this. You've gone through the pains, the smiling times, the happy times, the laughter, the very, very fearful moments, the traumatic times, and all of that. But this product has finally come together, and it goes to the film festival in Trinidad. And what is the feedback like? Were you there? Did you go? You know, what was that like?
Yeah. So it was fantastic there. We got invited to go to the festival, and the feedback was fantastic. The program organizer had told me straight up that it was her favorite film, and she was telling everyone about it. So we got lots of people coming in, and then again that same thing of you don't know how it's gonna come, how the reaction's gonna be, and you sit through it and you get the reactions you're looking for. And then I think also what was kind of proof of concept was afterwards the question and answer. How many questions there were, how engaged everyone was, and then even outside of the cinema, like people still coming up to us and wanting to talk about it, and everyone wants to find out how they can get it down the line and everything. So it really just felt like all this work and being dubbed a crazy person finally paid off.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Oh, somebody says they like your look, by the way, I should tell you.
Thank you.
Before we talk some more, somebody also wanted to know if your parents had thought you had died.
Yes.
They did.
I think so. Basically, my dad did not. My dad thought that I would have survived.
Your dad thought you had
Yeah.
survived.
My
The
mom,
Caucasian man.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That side.
Yeah. My mom was worrying on the roller coaster of up and down, and I
Okay.
think my dad helped keep her level
Okay.
throughout it.
Okay, all right. So the film premieres here again. So we did Trinidad, and from Trinidad we did Dominica, right? I'm sure at the time you were doing that, I'm not sure if you were aware that Emerald Movies was coming to Dominica, that there was that you were aware, right? Is that something that was in your mind that you would want to have that?
So when I started the project, Emerald Movies wasn't a thing, but around
Okay.
I can't remember exactly when it was, if it was the summer, but by the time we were getting ready for Trinidad, we knew Emerald Movies. But we were so caught up doing all the other things we had to do to deadline. It wasn't until when we came back that we were able to be like, all right, now this is our next chapter. And again, working around the clock to meet another deadline.
Yes.
But yeah, from time, I'd always wanted to do something for September 18th anniversary
Right.
of Hurricane Maria. Ended up being, 2 years later.
But
I
it's
think,
okay.
No, I think honestly...
Nothing
even better.
happens before it's
Exactly.
time.
And I think it's actually good having a little distance from the actual event as well.
Okay, so you get into discussions with the folks at Emerald Movies, and this becomes a thing. People are coming and filling up the house and wanting to see Uncivilized. Did you expect that?
Did I expect that? To some degree,
Okay.
but not to that degree.
Okay.
We were confident in our product.
Yeah.
You were confident in your product?
I mean, after Trinidad, the reception was great. I think, well, I know I for sure was like, everybody is gonna love this movie because we did something great.
But also, I always say, the crowd in Dominica can be tough. So I was like, even though we did well in Trinidad, who knows exactly how it's gonna be? I don't know, Sheldon, what about you?
Me, I expected more.
You expected?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I feel honestly, when I approached the management of Emerald Movies on this, again, coming in from wearing the executive producer and distributor hat, you have to be confident in the product that you're going to push to the cinema, and confident in a way to let them know that they are going to profit from this thing, or they're going to benefit from this thing being shown, because at the end of the day, it's a slot that they are providing that they could have taken a Hollywood blockbuster
True.
and put in that spot.
True.
One of the main reasons that I was so confident in this is because of what everyone went through. Like, Michael has his own experience.
Right.
We are seeing Michael's experience of Maria on the big screen, but we all can relate to it. Like, everyone, like I remember as a child you know your parents telling you about Hurricane David and you should be this and but you can't really remember Hurricane David because you're born in the 70s and you were very young, and so you know Omar and all those other stars, and you run on the big front and Waves Bisty. But Maria was a game changer for all of us who maybe never really experienced what our parents did during David. Really, you know? So that whole generation of Dominicans have something that they could resonate to. And again, being in the business of networking and getting people and knowing people and just pushing out on social media, I definitely felt that we have a successful product, and it's just about the technical ways of trying to market it and get it out there to make sure as much people can see it as possible. And I still feel like when we do, because we plan on doing something for independent season, and if we play our cards right and do a proper marketing scheme, we will full at theaters again, because there are a lot of Dominican people that haven't seen it yet.
Yes.
And through general
In
conversations.
fact, somebody posted that they hope that it's being played when they come down for
Definitely.
Independence.
Yeah, like my cousin Byron just flying from Tampa yesterday, he landed, and his eyes like,
Yes,
you go and watch a movie
yes.
last night because he still get a chance to see.
No, we say movie. Is it a movie or is it a film?
Same
Or
difference.
documentary?
Same thing.
It's a movie.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's the same.
Same thing.
Technically, a
Technically.
film is shot on film, so
Yeah.
nothing. A lot of our things
Oh.
aren't filmed anymore,
movie.
but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm learning.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the word film came from the actual
Film.
physical film that would be rolling, right? I guess movie is the more contemporary term,
Yes.
and it's a documentary
Okay.
movie.
Okay, so what follows here is this. What happens next with this one? When will those in the diaspora who may not be here for independence get to see it somewhere online? How can they access it? What's next for this? How can others get to see this beautiful production?
Okay, one of the main things that we're going to be doing now is pushing the film festival circuit. The film festival circuit is where independent films like this get seen, and a lot of traction is made, whether it be from distributorship, whether it be made from the awards that it receives and the critical acclaim that it receives. So we're going to keep pushing the film festival circuit, and we also definitely are going to be looking at the possibilities of doing some kind of online distribution, because at the end of the day I feel online distribution platforms exist. We just have to find the right fit for us, and the one that will reach out to the Caribbean diaspora most perfectly, and then try and see how we can tap into that. Michael can give you more details on to which exact festivals. Like we just got some emails today. I guess he can give you some updates to that.
Talk to us, Michael.
Yeah, so actually today we just got accepted to the Turks and Caicos inaugural film festival. We also got accepted today to Docs Without Borders. We're semi-finalists in the Bahamas Film Festival. We got invited to Guadeloupe, to French Guiana, Barbados. We also got invited to New York. Only thing is their timeline had already passed, but we got to meet the co-founder of the Chelsea Film Festival while we're in Trinidad. And again, it was cool meeting all these people who were doing all these things that are like, we love this project. And so also we've applied to a number in the States and Canada, in England. So a lot of those places where there are diaspora, hopefully they'll get to see it at a festival, and if not, then afterwards possibly through independent cinemas or definitely online. And they can stay up to date with everything that's going on, following at Uncivilized Film, Uncivilized with a Z, on Facebook or Instagram. And we also have a newsletter you can sign up to, and you know, every time we're at a new festival, we'll be sending out an email there.
Okay. I have to ask though, with all of these invitations, how do you fund getting there? How?
Well, I guess again it's self-funding. with our recent trip to Trinidad, I have to shout out to the Discover Dominica Authority and the Dominica Film Office who supported myself and Norris to join Michael, just to give him some support over there, and I think that was well worth it. I feel we made a big mark for Dominica. Like in the Trinidad theaters during the film festivals, I think Uncivilized was the very first film to fully house on the 4th day of the festival's running. So all the other 3 days we went there, we went to see a bunch of films, and you know.
Do you think the Maria element probably played a role in all of this?
I will more lend it to maybe just our little individual networking skills, being on the ground and realizing, okay, hey guys, how many seats empty today? How many seats empty today? You know what? Let's start making things happen. So like even in our, you know, after the day is over, we go out to a bar and everybody we meet is like, we on CV Live, you know that kind of thing? So it's like everybody's like, yeah, if I get a chance, I'll come, and then it's so happened they did come, you know, and we had a nice little showing down there. So yeah, for the future ones, I guess again we'll have to be reaching out to see if we get any type of support or maybe do the self-funding approach for ourselves. Also, the model which we just tried in Dominica with Emerald Movies worked well. Also, trying to network and find their counterparts in, especially in the OECS. So Antigua, we know we have a big Dominican population over there. St. Lucia, if we can do St. Martin, you know. Guadeloupe, Martinique, if we can work with some of the theaters to provide that same model where people can go out and see it and work some kind of distribution deal with the theaters directly, which we'll do that for sure.
What's the opportunities that are there for one making some money and getting this thing out there?
Okay, so the big opportunities is like if a super Netflix, no, it's like Netflix, but if a big distributor sees it, like you know, there's like BBC Films, there's CNN Films, there's HBO. You know, if a big distributor sees it and decides like this is something that they feel can work with a target audience of theirs, and we can sit down at a table and discuss a distribution deal on that level. I mean, this is the ultimate goal. This is Nirvana. But at the end of the day, like, we know how to hustle, so even if those things do pan out, that doesn't mean this is the end of the road for us, you know? Like, you know, like if you go back to, I know like people watching hip hop back in the days, there was those guys that was dealing with all those big studios and things, and then Master P come and start selling CDs out of the back of his ride, and next thing you know, Master P running the whole South. So we will hustle it if we have to hustle it and make it happen for sure.
You were going to add something?
Yeah, so I think a project like this kind of does have a sort of like viral appeal. So as long as you can get the information out, I think people will come see it. So that means getting into certain magazines, getting onto certain podcasts, especially out in the States and England as well. It's a great channel. There was a documentary I once saw, super low budget. It was basically this guy out on the streets filming on like death row or whatever out in LA. And it was super low budget, but it was one of these things, it was something you'd never seen before. And therefore, you know, it didn't need Netflix for me to find that movie and say, I want to see that movie and I'm going to pay for that movie.
All right. Michael, I want to just go to some of the questions that the folks left for you. So one of them is, what happened to the girl he called and told she's the one?
So I think Franny would actually like me to clear the record so she doesn't become an enemy of the state. We broke up before I came to do this project.
Okay.
Right? Afterwards, I was like, you know, I was trying to weigh things, and after Maria, I was like, you know what? Actually, I think this is it. I need it, so I'm trying to get back there. And yeah, too late. But honestly, I think that it worked out the best way. We're still really good friends. We just saw on Facebook yesterday, 6 years of friendship.
Okay.
and I mean I chatted to her this weekend, so
that's
all is
good.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
good. Okay. Fidina, please ask him about the guy he visited that lived away from society for over 40 years. He did not mention him at all after the storm. Would like to know if he survived the storm. Okay, we spoke about that
Yeah,
a
we
bit
did.
earlier on.
Yeah.
Yes, so he survived the storm. How strong did he remain after he called his girlfriend to inform her that she was the one, and she told him in return that she had moved on? I'm imagining that this could have been a second Maria.
Tabanka
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Okay, so we've covered that, right?
yeah, sure.
We've covered that, right? Oh,
It
you
was,
want-
it was honestly, I remember getting off the phone, and I even remember being like, it's so strange how calm I feel right now.
Yeah.
After going through all these things, you learn what acceptance is.
Yes,
you know what I
yes,
mean? Like,
yes.
everything mash up around.
Yeah.
That's another
What else
thing.
can
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this one says his parents seemed so calm when he got back.
My
I would have
parents
been
love me.
tears. They love you,
They
right?
love me.
All right. Talk about the experience during the hurricane. Did he realize the tree was going to fall? How close did it fall to him? I think you mentioned
Yeah.
that a bit earlier on. Can we expect a US screening?
Yeah.
We spoke about that as
Yeah,
well. Will the movie be available on DVD with extras that were edited?
That's a possibility.
That's a possibility. That's a possibility. I'm not sure what this one is asking, but it says, did he interview any young people, and how did they say they were able to adapt and cope?
Yeah, so after Maria,
Interesting.
it wasn't, I didn't particularly end up talking to that many young people except for some other work I was doing. I also did meet young people who were volunteering. And I filmed some things, they didn't particularly fit into the film. But yeah, again, there were a lot of people stepping up. I actually have this almost great picture of this kid in Bellevue, and we were out delivering water, and he's just decided he's gonna help pick it up and carrying everything, and he's wearing this shirt that says Generation Impact, and I was just like, yes.
Mhm.
That's your award winner.
Interesting you mentioned shirts. Are there t-shirts available for those of us who may probably want to get?
Sign up.
Okay, so
Souvenir.
yeah, we're definitely looking at some merchandise
Mhm.
options. While I was in Trinidad, on the spur of the moment, we did a run of a few shirts just so that we could wear because we had no clothes.
Che.
You know, I want to big up Che, Didier in Trinidad. I know he's not listening. Somebody that listening will know Che and big him up for us, you know, proper facts in Trinidad, yeah. But yeah, so we are looking at some options. The only thing is we just have to try and be very cost effective in this type of
Yes,
things.
indeed,
You
indeed.
know? Like the economies of scale does not really work anymore to try and get them done in Dominica.
Mhm.
Like only if you want to just gift it out, you know.
Mhm.
So we're definitely taking our time with that one. We're hoping that the movie will snowball into a bigger movement, and once that
My
snowball,
sister is making fun of you, or she said t-shirt at Garaway.
yeah. You know, we'll have to open that shop. Yeah.
Good one, Gilles.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
one, good one.
But
Um,
definitely, we are looking into those possibilities for merchandise and stuff.
Okay, all right. See the time?
Look at the time.
It has
Man, let's
come
see what we're gonna see.
and gone
Yeah.
within 2
hours.
hours. Are you kidding? No. I think it all comes down to, I tell people I do not do interviews, I have conversations. So
your boss.
all we're missing is the bottle with the black coffee, with the coffee in it. That's all we're missing here, right?
Go all night.
Yes, and we can go all night. But Michael, I mean, I have to commend you on taking this initiative. Maria came along and even made it, I guess, even greater than you anticipated, changed the focus of what you initially planned. How would you summarize this overall experience?
I would summarize it as an experience of firsts. Everything was sort of the first time, and there's a lot of, fear and anxiety doing things for the first time, but at a certain point you just basically got to do it, make mistakes, learn, and I think that's what we're doing, and it's paying off.
When the pastor was leaving this evening, he said to you, do not do it again. Is that something that you would attempt again?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. That's no. That's a no. I take that as a no, Michael. You're scared this time around, eh? But would you do something similar though? Would you do something?
Yeah,
similar?
well, the thing is, I guess for me, I'm still always going to be interested in ideas of nature, of the forest, ideas of progress, indigenous culture, plant culture, all of that stuff. So there's a good chance that, you know, I get taken onto a project of a similar vein. Not to go on with another category 5 project.
No, you better not.
Maybe a tornado or something.
But what next for Michael? What's next?
Good question. I think I might do a couple of shorter projects.
A couple of?
Shorter projects.
Okay.
Naris and I have been talking about the idea of doing some short film narrative stuff. I think there's definitely a space for it, telling Caribbean stories. I think you can look to Sheldon to see some of these things too. So who knows? We're gonna make things.
Who knows where
There's
the
gonna
trade
be,
blows,
more
right?
things will be made. We don't know
Yes.
exactly what yet. but-
Absolutely. Okay, before I come to you for your final comments, I'm going to get from Norris and Sheldon, and then we'll give you the final word. Yes, Norris.
I guess.
Go out and see the film.
Yeah, go and see the film.
Help him along.
Go see the film. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, the film, when it's coming out, when it's going to be distributed, and I guess for what's next with Michael, because he didn't tell you now, so you have to follow to find out. Yeah, we're taking it slow. I feel like a lot of people, like, the question we get all the time is, when is it going to be online?
Yeah, that's the most
In this
important
case, like, we don't want to rush anything. For certain opportunities, it can't be online yet. You need to play your cards right. So it's better to take it slow. So just bear with us while we figure it out. And you'll see it eventually. It will be online at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, well,
Norris, stop laughing at me. Because I'm moving my own camera. Okay, yes.
yeah, well, basically, I just want to push the gratitude to be a part of this. Michael, Norris, gratitude, and gratitude to everyone in the universe who is supporting this movement. People like yourself who gave us the opportunity to be here and even further push the story of Uncivilized out there. You know, I mean, it's avenues like this that will help, you know, the snowball effect, as I say, you know. And I feel, again, Michael mentioned it as a first, and just is the beginning of us telling our stories. And that is one of my biggest dreams, is that we stop tell his story and start tell our story. No pun intended.
Well, I do that on a Monday night, so I guess you have to do it film wise.
Yeah, film wise. Yeah. Well, in all avenues. I mean, at the end of the day, the more mediums that we tell our story as artists, you do it on the radio, and somebody express it through painting, and the next person expresses it through dance. Like right now, I feel in the audio-visual sector, in the film sector, I feel it's the right time for us to start telling good stories.
I agree. Good stuff. Michael, as we wrap up, how did you come about with Uncivilized?
Basically, the question is to me, what direction is forward, what direction is progress? And is so leaving the forest and going to the city forward, is leaving Dominica and going to New York forward, or is it at the end of the day that we actually need to recontextualize how we think about things and who's civilized, who's not?
Pause. Somebody says Michael meets Maria. Is that what I see there? Michael met Maria, M&M. Go on, Michael. Here's an option for you, part 2.
Yeah. And to piggyback off what Sheldon said, I think it would be amazing to be able to see Caribbean films being shown in Caribbean cinemas, and we don't have to ingest other people's stories all the times. We have our own, and thank you so much to everyone in Dominica that came out to support the film and made it what it is.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
That's your final word, Michael?
That's my final word.
All right. And you're here. You survive. That's the most important thing. All right, it is 10 minutes past 10 o'clock, and I think we had a wonderful program tonight, in spite of the fact that I was not 100% tonight, but we did it. You couldn't tell, could you?
No,
Not really.
No.
All
Boss
right. You try your best, in everything. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us on the program. This is a radio program. I just do this so those who are online can get to see. But the majority of our listeners they're actually via radio. So thank you to our radio listeners wherever you are tuned in. I know they stay up. I meet them in town all the time. They stay up and they listen to the program. So thank you for that. Thank you, Sheldon, for being here. Thank you, Norris, for being here. But Michael, thank you for doing this first, which could actually get us to this point that we are today. I won't call you that other word. I'll just say you are adventurous, and that's what it is. Bottom line, I really want to wish you well with this film. I really hope that it goes as far as you possibly can with it, and that you get the opportunity to get a top-notch distributor, Shannon? Top-notch distributor, Netflix, to get this going. So all the best, and thank you so much. Yes, thank you. I know it was a great show. Thank you so much. All right. Until we meet again next week, Monday. Who's my guest next week, Monday? Oh my God, I don't remember. But we do have a guest next week, Monday. Join us then. Until next time, have a good night, everyone.